want to hear you. Do you guys want to hear the word of God?
Yeah!
All right, man, some work over here needs some help.
Let's go.
I'm going to bring it. If you don't have the sermon notes, turn to the person next to you, and we're going to send those out to you. So it's much easier to follow along, okay? But the title of today's sermon is, we go through this character series. And one of the characters that we're taking a look at is this guy called Asa.
Come on, bro.
And the title is, Don't Be Almost Great.
Wow.
Don't be almost great.
Come on, bro.
Consistent righteousness is more important than results. God has never accepted the idea that you should do whatever it takes to get somewhere in life. He is just and perfect in all his ways, but people, on the other hand, are far from perfect.
Wow.
Quite the opposite. So that a bond that can exist between a loving and merciful creator and a resisting and rebellious creation is almost like a miracle in and of itself. But speaking about Asa, as a king, he came very close to being good. It was like he was almost there. He actually traveled a long way with God before getting off track. His sin was not so much deliberate disobedience, but rather choosing the easy way out
Wow.
rather than the right way.
Come on, bro.
The question you should always ask yourself is, do you do the right thing even when the wrong thing is easier?
Wow.
It's always a good question you kind of ask yourself.
Come on.
When the odds seemed impossible in the battle of the Cushites, Asa recognized his need to depend on God. So when he ended up getting in this battle, he recognized, straight away, I need God in my life right here. He recognized that. And then following that victory, God's promise of peace based on obedience spurred the king and people to many years of right living, which was awesome. But Asa was to face another test, a much tougher test in his life, which would be years of hostility between Asa and Israel's king Baasha, which ended up taking an ugly turn. Baasha, king of the rival northern kingdom, was building a fort that threatened the peace and the economy of the kingdom of Judah, which is what Asa ruled.
Yeah.
And Asa thought he saw a way out. He was like, man, I see a way out of all this mess. And so what he did is he bribed King Ben-Hadad of Aram to break his alliance with the northern kingdom of Israel. The plan worked brilliantly. However, it wasn't God's way of wanting to do it.
Wow.
It wasn't the righteous way of doing this. No, it was just King Asa's way of doing this. I know for myself, I've definitely wanted to take the easier way out. Maybe you're the same. And you go, let me take the easier way out, even if it's a little bit wrong, or maybe if it's just a little white lie. A little white lie never hurt anybody, right? Well, I'm sure King Asa thought the same. I remember applying for Centrelink. Centrelink is government money that you get from the government. And I was applying to try and get student payment, because as a student here, if you're Australian, not only do they pay for your studies, but you also get paid to study, which is pretty cool. And as I was studying, or as I'm now beginning to study, I'm applying for this thing that I've had in the past. And they asked me a question. They asked me, are you married? I said, yeah, of course. I clicked the yes. And then it goes, can you fill out all the details for her? And her income and all these different things, and make sure you have this ready. And it just got super complicated. I started filling it out, and then it just became super, super hard, and I was like, I don't even want to do this. This is gonna, yeah. Let me just click no, and then just move on forward.
Wow.
And I was like,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
and I was like, hopefully I'll get this.
Oh.
Well, rejected it.
Oh.
They didn't know I actually had a wife. But I really felt like that was God just saying, no, I'm not going to give it to you. You did the unrighteous thing. It's a little white lie. You're just trying to get in there and just get your money and get out instead of doing it the proper way.
Wow.
Maybe you're like me. You want to take the easy way out.
Come on.
It's such a small thing though. Yeah. But, you know, the integrity of someone
Wow.
is the true test of man.
Yeah. Come on.
It's the real test. You are who you are behind closed doors.
Yeah. That's right.
That's who you are. When Asa was confronted by God's prophet Hannah, he flew into a rage. He wasn't happy. Now someone called him out for it.
Yeah.
Actually, he jailed Hannah and he took his anger out on the people. Asa rejected correction and refused to admit his error to God. His greatest failure was missing what God could have done with his life if he had just been humble in his life. His pride ruined the health of his reign, and he stubbornly held on to his failure until his death. Does this attitude sound familiar? Can you identify failures in your life that you have continued to rationalize rather than admit them to God, to those around you, and to deal with them radically?
Yeah.
The idea of doing whatever it takes, that belief leads to sin and failure.
Yeah.
Come on.
The stubborn refusal to admit a failure due to sin can become a big problem because it makes you spend time rationalizing rather than learning from your mistake and moving on.
Yeah.
So let's take a review of what his life actually looked like. Let's take a look at his strengths and his accomplishments. Well, he obeyed God during the first 10 years of his reign. That's pretty good. Carried out a particularly successful effort to abolish idolatry, to stop worshipping idols. He even got rid of his idolatrous mother, Makkah. Got rid of her and was like, no, even though you're my mom, sorry, you're worshipping false idols. Out you go. Okay? Defeated Cush's mighty army. So he defeated a big army. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
What's his weaknesses and mistakes? Well, he responded with rage when he was confronted about the wrongs of sin in his life. He made alliances with foreign nations and evil people. So what do we learn from his life? God not only reinforces good, but he confronts the evil in your life.
Wow. Come on.
Efforts to follow God's plans and rules yield positive results and victories. How well a plan works is no measure of its righteous or approval by God. Some key verses that sums up Asa's life is in 2 Chronicles 16 verse 9. It says, "For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him."
Wow.
You have done a foolish thing, and from now on you will be at war.
Wow.
My first point is seek God and his righteousness with all of your hearts.
Come on, bro.
With all your hearts.
Come on, man.
Leaders should do what is good and right.
Yeah.
Let me scratch that. All of you should do what is good
Come on.
and right.
Come on, bro. Let's go.
Because we're all a leader in one way or another.
Yeah.
2 Chronicles 14, verse 2 to 7. Asa did what was good and right in the eyes of the Lord his God. He removed the foreign altars and the higher places, smashed the sacred stones, and cut down the Asherah poles. He commanded Judah to seek the Lord, the God of his ancestors, and to obey his laws and commandments. He removed the high places and incense altars of every town in Judah, and the kingdom was at peace under him. He built up the fortified cities of Judah since the land was at peace. No one was at war with him during those years. The Lord gave him rest. Let us build up these towns, he said to Judah, and put walls around them, and towers, gates, and bars. The land is still ours. We have sought the Lord our God. We sought him, and he has given us rest on every side. So they built up and prospered. It sounds really simple, right? Just do what's good and right, in God's eyes, and she'll be right.
Right. Come on.
That's it. But do you?
Come on.
Do you do what is good and right? Is your life a righteous one? Will you actually obey all the things in the Bible? Or just some of them?
Come on.
Or you're always at turmoil with your sinful nature, wanting to give into those things? Genesis 4 verse 7. If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door and desires to have you, but you must master it. So what did Asa do that was so right? Well, he removed the sin from his life and his people's life. That's what he did. And he led his people with authority, commanding them to seek God, not simply asking to. I think that's one of the big differences in this church. Which you'll find, yeah, it's a small group. But you know what? We ask. No, we don't just ask. We tell people, God first. Other churches will tell you, we'll just ask you to put God first. No. Biblically speaking, it's a command to call people to seek God first. That's what it should be. And though he was also thorough and diligent, going through every town to deal with the sin. Just like every single person. He was very thorough. When we get into that person's life, get into this person's life. He built up his kingdom. He had good relationships with those around him. And therefore, he was at peace, and as was his people. And as a result of this, him and his kingdom prospered. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Sounds all right. So what should we be doing? Well, removing and smashing sin from our lives and the lives of our ministries. That's what we should do. One of my friends, his name's Ryan Hill. He met me in California, in a little old place called Ventura, about 1 hour away from Los Angeles. And one of the things that he had to deal with in his life was smoking marijuana. He used to smoke a lot of dope. And one of the things that he was like, his idolatry was his bong. It was this big glass bong. And he was like, you know what? Instead of just selling it, most people would sell it because they're actually quite expensive. He just took that bong and he's like, you know what? And he just picked it up like this and he just smashed it on the ground. Just smashed it. Because he goes, I don't want myself doing this and I don't want anyone else doing this.
Yeah.
Because he was like, I need to get rid of the sin.
Come on.
You've got to command people to seek God. Build up the lives of the people. You've got to be at peace with everyone around us. You've got to be seeking after God. Prospering. Bearing much fruit. Where are we falling short in our lives today? The sin, the lukewarmness in our hearts. The lack of building close relationships with people. Are you still falling short with special missions for some of you? Have you handed it in yet? Are you still working at it? Or have you just kind of left it off to the side? The lack of building up people's lives. Are you actually getting into people's lives? Getting into someone's life is like picking them up and taking them to church with you. That's what it's about. Are you dealing with the unresolved relationships that you have in your life? Family members or other people? How about your bad relationship with God? Are you dealing with it? Are you dealing with it? Are we letting Satan strangle our passion for God? Are you guys with me right now?
Yeah.
You guys want to hear the word of God?
Yeah.
I believe.
Come on, Mel.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right. Are you letting your work affect your relationship with God? You just go, oh, sorry, I got work. So my relationship with God or wanting to study the Bible, I'll just put work first. And that's helped you in what way? Pay your bills? There's always bills to pay. There's always bills to pay. You think God can't take care of a bill? He made you. Does that make sense? Being busy being focused on meeting people, but you're not helping them become a disciple and So you want to go evangelize, you want to meet people, but you're not helping them become a disciple. You're not getting into their life, hanging out with them, and making them into one. Are you letting the stress of your life or your insecurities in your life stop you from feeling closer to God?
No.
Because you're just too busy being insecure.
Yeah.
Instead of just going, I just need to feel close to God, right?
Yeah.
Come on.
And I just need to trust that God's going to make it work.
Yeah.
I really want to lift up Peter.
Go Peter.
Peter's awesome. But you know what? Peter's doing something that other people just would not do. He's got 2 exams tomorrow.
Dang.
2 exams tomorrow.
What?
And he's like, I'm still coming to church.
Come on,
Go
Peter.
Because I want to put God first.
Come on, Peter.
That's what it should be.
Come on, Peter.
That's what it should be. Do you call out to God for your people? 2 Chronicles 14, verse 9 to 12. Zerah the Cushite marched out against them with an army of thousands upon thousands and 300 chariots, and came as far as Mareshah. Asa went out to meet him, and they took up battle positions in the valley of Zephon, near Mareshah. Then Asa called to the Lord his God and said, Lord, there is no one like you to help the powerless against the mighty. Help us, Lord our God, for we rely on you, and in your name we have come against this vast army. Lord, you are our God. Do not let mere mortals prevail against you. But the Lord struck down the Cushites before Asa and Judah, and the Cushites fled, defeated the army. While Asa could have had confidence in his army, he knew the key victory to making it through was with God. That's what he knew. See, you can work hard all day and achieve nothing without God.
Yeah.
Or you can be so God focused that you get his attention and he comes to your aid. How is your relationship with God? Are you loving it?
Come on.
Are you really, really just like enjoying it? I love just talking to Francisco before, and he's like, I've just really started praying, and I've just started reading my Bible, and I just feel like this is just different. I've tried churches before, and I've been doing it, but this right here is different. Are you feeling the difference?
Yeah.
If not, why not?
Come on.
You see, he's like, I want to put my whole heart in it. Are you putting your whole heart in it?
Let's go.
Maybe that's why you're not feeling it. Maybe that's why you're just not feeling closer to God.
Yeah.
Is this the year where you can honestly say you are having the best times with God?
Come on.
Come on, Bill.
Is this that year? I love Mel. I know she is. But if it's not you, why not you? Why not? You have not set your heart on pursuing greatness in your relationship with God. You see, your relationship with God should not be results driven. If that's the case, it's always going to suck.
Yeah.
It's going to suck. If people are becoming Christians, awesome, my relationship with God is fantastic. If they're not, now it sucks. What is that?
Yeah.
Come on.
That should never be it.
Yeah.
Or if I'm getting a great job and I'm passing and I'm getting great grades, my relationship with God is awesome. But then it's not, it sucks. What is that?
Come on. Pull it out.
What is that?
Let's
Yeah.
go.
Talk about it.
That's terrible. That's no relationship at all.
Yeah.
That's a selfish relationship.
Yeah.
That's a relationship that's like, I want, but I don't want to give.
Yeah.
Praise God all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Come on.
Your relationship with God doesn't depend on how well you do and how well you don't do. It should just be like, whether it goes good or whether it goes bad, I love God.
Yeah.
That's it.
Appreciate it.
Has your personal sin put a barrier between you and God? How is your purity?
Yeah. Come on.
How is your sexual purity? How is it? How is the purity in your heart? Matthew 5 verse 8 says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Are you mastering your laziness? Your critical attitudes towards other people? Contempt. I really appreciate what Rafara is doing with the boys. You know, he's getting up at 5 o'clock, he's getting the boys out of bed, dragging them out.
Come on,
Come on,
He's
bro.
like, ain't no laziness now that I'm here.
Yeah.
It ain't happening.
Come on.
Forget the alarm clock, I am the alarm clock.
Facts, bro. Facts. Let's go.
Come on, bro.
Do you love to love people? Or is evangelism and follow-up difficult? It's burdensome. It's dutiful. Do you see it that way? It's the Lord striking the enemies in your lives. Do you see God working throughout your personal life and even your ministry? It's the good news of God's work flowing through your personal life and your ministry. If not, why not? I'll tell you why not. It's because your relationship with God sucks.
Amen.
Because if it was results driven, then it's gonna suck.
Yeah.
It's funny when it's like dating. When you're not focused on dating, you start dating. And when you are focused on dating, you don't start dating. In the exact same way, when you're focused on results, you don't get any results.
That's it.
If you're not focused on results and you're just focused on God, results come.
Come on.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Do people see that God is with you? Do they see it? They walk around and they're like, hey, God's with that person right there. Yeah, they got a little kick to them. Something about that guy. 2 Chronicles chapter 15, verse 1 to 9.
Come on, bro.
The Spirit of God came on Uzziah, son of Obed. He went out to meet Asa and said to him, listen to me, Asa, and all Judea and Benjamin. The Lord is with you when you are with him. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you. For a long time, Israel was without a true God, without a priest to teach, and without the law. But in their distress, they turned. For a long time, Israel was without a true God, without a priest to teach, and without the law. But in their distress, they turned to the Lord, the God of Israel, and sought him. And he was found by them. In those days, it was not safe to travel about, for all the inhabitants of the land were in great turmoil. One nation was being crushed by another, and one city by another, because God was troubling them with every kind of distress. But as for you, be strong. Don't give up, for your work will be rewarded. When Asa heard these words in the prophecy of Azariah, son of Obed the prophet, he took courage. He removed the detestable idols and the whole land of Judah and Benjamin, and from the towns he captured the hills of Ephraim. He repaired the altar of the Lord that he was in front of the portico of the Lord's temple. Then he assembled all Judea and Benjamin and the people from Ephraim, Manasseh, and Simon, who had settled among them, for large numbers had come over to him from Israel when they saw that the Lord God was with him.
Come on.
You see, Asa, he got a little bit of what we like to call discipling here. That's what he was getting. His disciples stated the fact that the Lord is with you when you're with him. If you seek him, you'll find him. If not, he'll forsake you. He'll leave you, abandon you. Azariah reminds Asa of a time when life was bad. We can all remember some times like that in our life, when time just hits. You'll remember those times where you're just like, yeah, that sucked.
Yep.
Maybe for you it was during COVID. Oh, I remember that time. Yeah, that sucked. Maybe someone close to you passed away. Can you remember? Yeah, that time sucked. You remember those things. Asa got the instruction to be strong, never give up, to work and believe that his work will be rewarded. Are you being strong for your people? Or have you given up already? Do you still work with the faith that God will reward you? Hebrews 11 verse 6, and without faith, it is impossible to please God. Because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him.
Come on, bro.
When your people see God is with you, they will seek the Lord and deal with the sin in their own camp radically. 2 Chronicles 15, 10 to 19. They assembled in Jerusalem in the 3rd month of the 15th year of Asa's reign. At that time, they sacrificed the Lord 700 head of cattle and 7,000 sheep and goats from the plunder they had brought back. They entered into a covenant to seek the Lord, the God of their ancestors, with all their heart and soul. All who would not seek the Lord, the God God of Israel were to be put to death, whether small or great, man or women. They took an oath to the Lord with loud acclamation, with shouting and with trumpets and horns. All Judea rejoiced about the oath because they had sworn it wholeheartedly. They sought the Lord eagerly and was found by them. So the Lord gave them rest on every side. King Asa also deposed his grandmother, Maacah, his grandmother, from her position as queen mother, because she had made repulsive images for the worship of Asherah. Asa cut down, broke it up, burnt it in the Kidron Valley. Although he did not remove the high places from Israel, Asa's heart was fully committed to the Lord all of his life. He brought into the temple of God the silver and gold and the articles that he and his father had dedicated. There was no more war until the 35th year of Asa's reign. You see, your example either inspires godliness or it inspires worldliness in other people. Your personal life and the people you lead are a direct reflection of you. Your marriage either inspires people to get married or it makes people not want to get married. Your life either inspires people to want to change or it makes people not want to change. Your ability to take sin seriously either gets people to take God seriously or to not take him seriously. How well you do in your degree and your education. And if you put God first during that time, inspires people to want to come to God or go away from God. Everything that you do in your life matters. Point number 2, beware of hardening your hearts. 2 Chronicles 16, verse 1 to 9. In the 36th year of Asa's reign, Baasha, king of Israel, went up against Judah and fortified Ramah to prevent anyone from leaving or entering the territory of Asa, king of Judah. Asa then took the silver and gold out of the treasuries of the Lord's temple and of his own palace and sent it to Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, who was ruling Damascus. Let there be a treaty between me and you, he said, as there was between my father and your father. See, I'm sending you silver and gold. Now break your treaty with Baasha, king of Israel, so that he will withdraw from me. Ben-Hadad agreed with King Asa and sent the commanders of his forces against the towns of Israel. They conquered Dan, Abel, Maam, and all store cities of Naphtali. When Baasha heard this, he stopped building Ramah and abandoned his work. Then King Asa brought all the men of Judah, and they carried away from Ramah the stones and timber Baasha had been using. With them he built up Geba and Mizpah. At that time, Hanai the seer came to Asa, king of Judah, and said to him, because you relied on the king of Aram and not on the Lord your God, the army of the king of Aram has escaped from your hand. Were not the Cushites and the Libyans a mighty army with great numbers of chariots and horsemen? Yet when you relied on the Lord, he delivered them into your hand. For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. You have done a foolish thing, and from now on, you will be at war. I love this scripture because, you see, people want to go, well, I will get strength from God when God's with me. Actually, as a matter of fact, you need to go to God first, and then God gives you strength. It's like people expect to become great at sports without practicing. That's what they try and do in church. They go, oh yeah, well let me just try and get committed to God. Like, let me feel like I know God, and then I'll be committed to Him. That's not it at all. You need to first get committed to God, and then the rest happens. That's how it works. It's not the other way around. What do you just go, I'm just an NBA player right now and I don't practice basketball? That's stupid. First you practice, and then you get there. Right? You've got to practice church, and then you get strengthened. That's how it works. We are only as spiritual as our last day. Asa seemed to reign with a spiritual heart for up to 36 years. Yet somewhere in those last years, he went from being spiritual to just simply looking spiritual, to having a form of godliness. 2 Timothy 3, verse 1 to 5. But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying its power, have nothing to do with such people. Just like in the first century church, in just over 30 years in 2 Timothy, where it was written in 64 to 65 AD, it was back then. 30 years later, people became this. King Asa's time, 30 years later, people became like this. You see, when pressure came on Asa's heart, everything was revealed. His whole heart was revealed. Asa became worldly in his thinking. He looked to man for help, not God. That's what he was looking for.
Yeah.
Thinking more money would help him rather than going to God in prayer.
Come on.
That's what he thought. He made friends with unspiritual people thinking they would help him more than God.
Wow.
It even seemed to work for the time, yet God was not pleased with his worldliness. What are some signs of spiritual people becoming unspiritual and worldly?
Come on.
People will be lovers of themselves.
Yeah.
They will be lovers of money. Money becomes a big issue for them on how much they have, how much they do not have,
Yeah.
and how much they give to God or have to give.
Come on.
Boastful, proud, conceited, abusive, ungrateful, unforgiving. They never seem happy. Always looking for someone else to blame.
Come on.
It's not me, it's my situation, it's this, it's that.
Awesome.
They become slanderous, rash, without self-control, brutal. What comes out of their mouth is therefore in their heart, and it's not controlled at all.
Yeah.
They're reckless words. They're slanderous towards those who lead them or their peers.
Yeah. Come on.
Unholy. Lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God.
Come on.
They hate being called to a constant standard of righteousness that God demands. They seek comfort from pleasure rather than God in prayer and Bible study.
Come on.
They go, let me just find my comfort in someone else.
Yeah.
Instead of actually finding it in God in the Bible.
Yeah.
Which is what it should be.
Yeah.
We must constantly go to God in prayer instead of worrying about what may or may not happen.
Yeah.
Instead of worrying about my studies. Instead of worrying about my job. Instead of worrying about my bills. Going to God, that He will take care of it all. We get too afraid to have this thing called faith. We get too afraid to have faith in God, that He'll provide, because you don't trust that He is the God of the impossible. You see, you can't have a miracle in your life unless you're stuck in an impossible situation.
Yeah.
That's how miracles work in life. One time we were trying to find a house in Parramatta for a bunch of the guys. And what happened is we just got a notification. One of the brothers of the church wasn't checking his emails, that they were getting kicked out of the house. And so the day before, we got told, you're getting kicked out tomorrow.
Whoa.
Make sure you have we haven't packed anything, we haven't found a house, we haven't found anything. My hair's falling out. What do I do? And that's when you're stuck in an impossible situation. You can't find a real estate agent that will give you the house the next day. It's literally impossible.
Right.
But I have this guy called God, and he's the God of the impossible.
Yeah. Talk about it.
And so my friend James and I were just like, well, what can we do? We can just go pray now. So we went out and we prayed.
Come on.
And we felt a lot better about it. And then we came back and we started packing all the stuff in the house, and it's nighttime now. We can't find any houses.
Wow.
Let's just figure it out.
Wow.
And right after that, and straight away in the morning, I was praying, I was calling all these real estate agents, people telling me they can't do it, they need this time, they need that time. And my wife, being as awesome and holy as she is, was looking on Facebook. And she ended up finding out, there was a place available on Facebook.
Come on.
And it was even bigger
Wow.
and even better than the last one.
Wow.
And I was like, nice. So I texted them. And they said, yeah, you can move in straight away. Couldn't believe it.
Come on.
People telling me I can't find a house, I can't find this. God found this one in less than 2 days.
Yes.
Straight up. They still have it today, which is pretty awesome.
That's epic.
That's what God does.
Yeah.
Because He's the God of the impossible.
That's it.
Yeah.
We must not seek comfort from our family or friends, but solely in God and His written word.
Come on.
If you don't find comfort in the word, you will never find true comfort anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
You won't.
True.
We were having a marriage talk last night, and one of the points was if you find comfort in your life, you'll ruin your life.
That's hard.
Not because your wife's awesome, and she should be,
Yeah.
but in the fact that you should be with God.
Yeah.
You find comfort in God. You don't find comfort in anywhere, even though He's closest to you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Come on, Solo.
Come on.
Having a form of godliness but denying its power. They're weak. They lack the power of God to keep with the spiritual demands God expects them, and wish to surround themselves with other people whose standard of righteousness is about Him, instead of surrounding themselves with people whose standard of righteousness is about here. And so they surround themselves with less spiritual people. Yeah, well, their standard's not that high, so let me just hang out with you guys. And that's what they do. People go to churches that make them feel comfortable or okay with their sin, as long as it doesn't challenge them.
Yeah.
Right.
Because heaven forbid, if you challenge me, well, I don't like that.
No.
Don't think I'll come here. Might just go to City Point Church.
Whoa.
Anyone who wants to play serious is like someone who versus people that are better than them at the sport. It helps improve them. I used to verse this guy in basketball. His name was John Williams. And he was very, very good. He even went to Florida International University, which is a D1 college in the States. And he was a bit younger than me. But he had a motive to this guy. He was quick. He was as quick as could be. And I would always try and verse him. I'd always lose. But I felt like every time I played against him, I got better and better and better. Until one day, I finally won against him. I said, all right, I'm not versing anymore. That's it. I feel good about myself now. But that's the thing. You need to surround yourself with people that are much better at you than things.
Yeah.
That's true.
Surround yourself with people that are more spiritual than you.
Yeah.
That'll help you grow more spiritually.
Yeah.
People become weak because they are uncommitted to God in their heart. They may come to the church meetings, sure. You may go feed the homeless, sure. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. They may pray and read their Bible, but more to try and change the situation they're in rather than themselves.
Come on.
They find a way to surround themselves with people to make them feel good about their lack of spirituality, to stop the wearing in their heart. 2 Timothy 4, verse 3. For a time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. That's your teaching. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear.
Yeah.
Yet they will always be at war with God and His righteousness. Asa became proud to his spiritual teacher and full of anger, leading to malice. 2 Chronicles 16, verse 10. Asa was angry with the seer because of this. He was so enraged and he put him in prison.
Wow.
At the same time, Asa brutally oppressed some of the people. Have you become embittered to people's saying it is as it is in your life. For people calling out the sin in your life.
Yeah.
Just get angry at it. Come and help me back. Are you grateful when being challenged? Or are you resentful? Are you humble? Or do you get angry? I remember this one time, the same guy who smashed the bomb, Ryan Hill. And he became fully committed to God, and he ended up going into the ministry and doing incredible things. And of course, he ended up meeting me. And I wasn't very spiritual at all. And he called me this one time. And we got into this big fight. We got into this massive fight. Because he was like, bro, you got to be committed to God. I'm not asking. I'm telling you. You've got to be committed to God. He goes, we meet on Wednesdays, we meet on Thursdays, we meet on Fridays and Sundays. I was like, that's 4 days in a week! What do you mean I've got to be that committed? And we got into this massive fight. And he was just like, he was very calm. He was like, bro, that's what Christians do. You don't miss church. That's unloving. That's unspiritual. That's not what Christians do at all. That makes you a non-Christian if you want to do that. This is what we do. And I was like, and he, him being an awesome guy, picked me up and take me constantly, and that was great. Very grateful. Well, about a month passed, and I said to Ryan, why do we only meet 4 days a week? I feel like we should meet every day. I feel like 4's not enough.